our other person. See? You're wondering if we have other people. Well, Nicole sometimes watches.
Now, Nicole, I think I actually met the other day.
Oh, really? Was she at the game?
Yeah. Well,
okay.
she was at Bozzy for the national team.
Okay.
The Irish game, and she came up afterwards. So I think I actually know her on site now.
Hello. Okay. So I'm gonna have to awkwardly hold this because the stand doesn't get us in frame. I'm joined by John, who is one of my favorite Twitter people ever, probably top 3 with, I don't know. Let's figure this out.
Does it need to be horizontal or vertical?
I think horizontal will look best for people using Periscope, but yeah.
But it won't stand on that thing.
It will stand there, but it won't show us.
Oh, it won't show us.
Yeah, it won't be in frame.
Do you have books?
Yeah. Mine has like 12 million chemistry books.
Yeah, because I was thinking if you have the appropriate thickness.
Huzzah. Okay. Perfect.
But I don't want it to fall forward,
fine.
so maybe take a little bit out of that.
I met Nicole at the Q&A for the
I think I just tore it off.
yeah, it's a magnet. It's fine.
What's the magnet?
Yeah. Boom.
I got out of the whole tech thing before they went.
There. We're gonna make it so you guys can see us. What do you think of that? Problem solved. Look at that. Yeah, it's right here.
That's part of that technical wizardry that allows me to make clever banners.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
Too far?
No, it just got turned around. There it goes.
There we go.
Cool. Welcome. Welcome. So yes, one of my favorite Twitter follows, and Ryan will be joining us soon. He is running late because of work, which I decided not to do today. So therefore I don't have that problem. So let's chat Thorns first, since we're Cascadia.
They look really good, but man, I hate giving up early points.
Yeah.
That's gotta stop.
Yeah.
Like
here's one of the things I really like about the Thorns, and also one of the things that I think is our biggest problem. Comparing them to, say, the U.S. national team, that a lot of us know how they play. National team's been playing a lot of long ball, whereas we're playing with a lot of short passes, a lot of quick passes, and that's cool and that's great, but it leaves us really open in the back, and people are capitalizing on that. Because that's what I noticed that Washington and Chicago both did. They saw holes in our defenders, and they just scored 2 goals within 13 minutes, both of them within 15 minutes.
I guess I'm trying to think, have I been thinking about it like that? I see how that's kind of true, but the thought that was running through my head while I was watching this last time was that we felt like our head had kind of been cut off. Mm-hmm. It's like we were able to do like possession ball through a lot of it, which I thought was awesome, because it's like that's always made me like queasy, like in the last couple of years when we watch them, that it's like they don't know how to settle the ball. Every time a pass hits their feet, it pops up waist high, and they're like, oh my God, I can't control the ball. And somebody from the other team comes along and says, I will control the ball. And then they take it away. And it's like, we're not supposed to be doing that, hang on to the ball. And so it's like, they seem great with that this year. I've been like just shocked at how much better they seem to have gotten midfield wise in the last year. But just this last game, the Chicago one, I don't really know, but just this last game that I was watching, it felt painfully obvious that we didn't have any strength up front. We could get up to about the top of the 18, and then it would just kind of come to nothing, and they'd run back.
Do you think that Ao or I don't know how to pronounce your name correctly, so I'll have to wait for the announcer to say it, but do you think she'll bring
Enyanma?
Enyanma.
I've been watching a lot of Frauen Bundesliga this year, and so it's like I don't speak German very well, but I can understand when I hear Enyanma.
Enyanma.
Yeah, and they say her name a lot, so it's like I've heard it a bunch.
Do you think? She should be here now, right? Do you think she's gonna bring that firepower?
Before I left the house, somebody tweeted a picture of her standing in Gel Duin, and she looked very Portlandy. She had like jeans and a leather jacket, a couple of scarves,
her glasses,
grungy looking horizontal Kurt Cobain looking shirt. I didn't notice whether she had the glasses on or not.
But she does. She has them, and that's what matters.
She does have the big honking geek glasses.
She will therefore fit in well here. I have them too. They gave them to me when I crossed the state border.
We should get like her and Tobin to wear them.
Yes.
Like, Tobin wears those things too.
Yes, and they both look real cool doing it.
Everybody looks cool in those glasses. I don't know how they ever got to be this reputation of being uncool. These big banker glasses are good looking glasses, you know?
I'm glad she's here, and I'm glad that she's, gonna fit in. And I just hope that she fits in with Paul Riley's system, because I know that he's got these technical passing patterns that are just complex. I mean, any coach will have a new system, so it'll be tough maybe the first week. But hopefully against Boston and their backup goalkeeper, who is not very good, we learned when they played Chicago, she'll be able to capitalize.
Well, I asked, there's one guy that I follow on Twitter. He writes a blog every once in a while, and he's a Potsdam guy.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently he's like a long time. Potsdam is a weird team. It's dawning on me that they're roughly the equivalent of like Western New York in the German league, is that they're not the child of some huge football operation that spawned a women's team. It's like they're an independent, stand on their own entity, and they've got kind of a blue ribbon reputation or something like that. And he was moaning in some post the other day about how a lot of good players are leaving. They're trading out because they seem to be falling out of the perennial challenger for Champions League thing. I think they finished 4th this year. I think it was 4th.
Is it 4th for the German women, or is it 1-2 for them Champions League?
And apparently the rules on this have been changing. I think it used to be that they took the top 3, but they've been reorganizing it so that each federation or whatever only sends 2 teams. And so like just this last weekend was the final weekend of their season. And Bayern Munich was clear up top. They had a Seattle year. I mean, people managed to tie them, but even Seattle lost. I don't think they lost a game all year.
Wow.
I might be wrong about that.
I mean, and they just won, right? They just won the league, I think.
They did. They did. And I'll have to go back and look at this. I can't remember seeing them lose a game all year, but I didn't watch all. But I don't think they lost. I think they had about like 5 or 6 draws. But yeah, they had a great year. And then Wolfsburg was right behind them, like a point or 2, and then Frankfurt was in 3rd.
Now, wasn't it thanks to Vero that Wolfsburg didn't win the Bundesliga? Because didn't she score against Wolfsburg and last time?
Not Vero.
Oh, wasn't it Vero?
Yeah, it wasn't Vero that did that. And Yamba is the one.
Okay.
She's the only player I think who scored on Wolfsburg more than once.
Wow.
This year, and I think there have only been 3 players that have scored at all against them. I mean, like nobody scores on those guys.
So let's hope she can bring that for our Seattle games.
So yeah, but she actually had 2. They played them twice, and I think one time they had a draw against them once, and it was a 1-1 thing, and Young had to go. And then like later on, they actually won 2-1, like within the last month, I think. But anyway, on the final weekend, Bayern Munich was playing Essen. I think it's Essen. It's one of those weird German towns that just sounds like a bland verb, like to mow the lawn.
We're winning the match.
Come right up on the screen.
Oh, Nicole, repeat that one that you said about Wolfsburg.
So I think they were playing Essen, right?
It disappeared too quickly, Nicole.
So too quickly, we can't see the announcement anymore. Anyway, we're not even looking at the screen. So anyway, Bayern Munich was playing Essen, and I think they won pretty handily. I think it was like 2-3 to 1, or maybe 2-3 to 0. I didn't watch that game. The other one was Frankfurt and Wolfsburg, who were like within a point of each other. Mm-hmm. And because Wolfsburg got knocked out of the Champions League by Paris, so PSG knocked them out of the Champions League, but they were still in 2nd of the Bundesliga.
Hi, Nicole.
No time to go. And so I was watching that game this last weekend, and nothing really changed on the last day. It could have been really dramatic because either Frankfurt, Wolfsburg, or Munich could have won, depending on how the results flew out. Like, you know, there was some really crazy year in English football recently that was like that, you know, where like 3 teams could have won on the last day. They didn't know where to take the trophy or something like that because they didn't know what was going to happen. This ended up being pretty as expected. You know, the team that was number 1 going in, Munich, finished number 1. Team that was number 2 going in, Wolfsburg, refound themselves, and they were very mean in the second half, and they finished second. And so those 2 go to Champions League next year, but they're the only 2 that go. Frankfurt, on the other hand, slaughtered some Danish team, I think, to get into the Champions League final this year. And so even though Frankfurt did not qualify for Champions League this last weekend by either winning or finishing second in the Frauen Bundesliga season, they still have the opportunity to play in Champions League next year if they can qualify as the defending champion. So if they can beat Paris on Thursday or Friday, I don't remember. It's late this week, but before this weekend is when the Champions League final is. They can still qualify to play again next year, but they got to beat Paris to do it. So, and
it'll be really fun to watch.
Yeah, but I have no good idea how those 2 are going to match up against each other. You know,
it's interesting to see Paris do so well. I guess that's what makes me fear France so much in the World Cup is all their great players play on 2 teams and they all play together all the time. They play each other, and you know.
I'm trying to remember. It's like most of the French national team, or more of them, play for Paris than play for Lyon. Right?
Really? Okay.
I think Lyon is more like a Franken team. They have lots of internationals and junk that really play, and then some of their minor players are, you know, French internationals.
Gotcha.
But I think all the big French internationals, or most of the big ones, are Paris. I don't know. I don't watch the French stuff as much. It's harder to find. The thing with the Bundesliga stuff is I kind of stumbled on they stream, you know, not every game. They'll do 1 game every week, more or less. So they have all of their matches set up, and then they pick out which games they think are going to be good ones, and they stream that 1 game. And the thing is so there's not a ton of these streams. You only get like 1 week, and sometimes they have extra week breaks. So it'll be a 2-week break before you get another one, and there's that whole Christmassy thing. But somehow I stumbled on this during the opening weekend, and so it's kind of like, oh, this is kind of cool. I can meter myself and just do 1 game a week on this Bundesliga, and little by little you get to kind of see everybody in it, you know. And so it's the first year that I've really like watched a lot of it, rather than just, you know, the big marquee games that you hear about here. So,
were you a fan of Ayo? Say it again. Say her name again.
Anyanma
before we got her.
I knew who she was, but I didn't really like eyeball her, you know, during the game. I mean, like, I think I had seen three games that Potsdam had been in this year prior to them naming her, you know. And then after that, I think I kind of watched pretty much her. You know, sometimes you watch a game and you kind of, the game's going on, but it's sort of in your peripheral mind, but you're really eyeballing one player the whole time.
Right.
That's what I kind of did for the recent one.
Yeah.
Which was a fun one, because that turned out to be a Wolfsburg game when they beat them, and it was like, oh, we're gonna like this girl.
I'm really looking forward to having her. And I definitely think, I mean, it's been, you know, bringing it back to the Thorns, it's been really Ali and Mana just, I mean, pulling this team through, and I mean, Kat too, to some extent. But it'd be so nice to take some of the pressure off of them.
How did I get onto this topic? Okay, so the trick is there's this guy. I started out this whole blah, 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 blah. I told you I was either gonna like not talk at all, freak out, and leave, or just blather. All right, I started out talking about this. There's this guy that I followed on Twitter because I stumbled across his blog one time, because he's a guy and he loves women's football. And so he writes this blog about women's football. And a lot of it is just him kvetching about how painfully awkward it is to be a guy and like women's football. But it's like, okay, I can understand that. And so I followed him on Twitter, and so I keep seeing these like update things from him, and then it comes to me, okay, he's an old-timey Potsdam guy. This is his team he's watching, and he's like kind of worried about it. And so it dawned on me when they named Enyanma, it's like, hey, I know this Twitter guy. And so like I actually like direct message him, and I started asking him, I go, you know, like, what are we really gonna think of this girl? And he says, well, he said she can be really streaky. Okay, like there will be some games when she'll like hit something early, and then just all of a sudden it seems like she's untouchable. But nobody can get near her, nobody can predict what she's gonna do. She'll be trying bicycle kick crap all over the place, just completely out of her mind. Great. But then you might go 3 or 4 games where it's just like, what is she doing? You know, she's like bouncing around on a pogo stick, not doing anything. It's pretty streaky. But he says, don't let that fool you. The one thing about this girl is that every game she will give you everything that she has until she just collapses. So it's like, I think she's a blue collar player, you know, that we will get her best effort, and there won't be any of this, well, I have other responsibilities to do such and such for my country kind of thing. It's like, I think that she does that, but I think she conceives of football as this is work, this is a job, and I'm going to go do it, you know? And so it's like, that again seems like the kind of player that we in this town really like. So I think we're going to dig her.
I cannot wait to watch her. I hope she plays against
Boston. She's kind of small, though.
Yeah, she's small.
That freaked me out a little. Though. I know Mana's small, but Mana's small. Zerboni's small. It's like we've already got the smallness down. We already do small real well.
You know who we would miss right now? Just McDonald.
We need big. That's what we need. We want. we need some big to add to the small. You know, either that or we've got to get like somebody. Well, Menges is pretty big, isn't she? Menges.
I think her and Sinker. I can't.
I know how to say Enyanma, but I'm still not sure
I don't know how to say either.
Menges.
Well, she is. What's funny is that she's one of my new favorites. I want to get her jersey. Love her. She's so much fun to watch. And I don't know how to say her name.
We really dig you.
And we want you to come on the show. That's my new life goal. If you didn't see me tweet that yesterday, I was serious about it. Yeah, so it was her giveaway, though, that created the second goal. I understand that. Wait, Menges. Looking out. Menges.
Like, gee, I don't know.
I'm going to forget that tomorrow.
See, because I thought it was Menges.
Yeah.
Like, geez.
Menges.
And part of me really wants it to be Menges.
Maybe that's a reason she should come on the show.
Because it sounds more like Mingus. Which means that we might be able to knock up a Charles Mingus album cover for an Emily-specific kind of banner someday. Do it. I don't know. But I don't know how many people would recognize a Charles Mingus album cover. But
maybe Emily Menges gets that a lot.
Plus, she doesn't really look like a giant 200-pound black jazz bass player. But
and the right lighting.
We can get around that.
Menges. Okay. That's from the announcer of the Chicago Red Stars. We can count on him.
And it's a G, not a J, right?
Menges.
Because when Riley says it, he keeps saying Menges.
I think he just doesn't know how to say his players' names. I think because he said a few of them wrong in press conferences.
I can see that.
He calls players by the wrong names. I don't think he cares. He's just like number 12.
Yeah, correct. It's kind of fun.
Yeah. So Chicago, we kept talking about how Chicago would look less good without all their national team players.
I was hoping they would look weaker.
And here we are, and they are fantastic. They looked so good against Boston, just like, hello, floor, these are my feet.
Well, now part of that was, I was also thinking that Boston would look a little better than Boston traditionally looks, because just the week before, Boston looked really good.
Right.
But they
was that against Western New York, right? That they looked good?
Who was it that Boston beat? No, it was bigger than Western New York.
No, it was Western New York because it was the two newest.
Boston is the team that beat Washington, aren't they?
No, Boston beat Western New York because remember, it's the Mewis sisters.
Oh, okay.
It was the Mewis sisters against one another, and they had that whole rivalry. And then, oh wait, did Boston? No, because Western New York won that game. You're right. Might have been. Did Boston beat Washington? Are you serious?
I think that's what surprised me so much because I was thinking Washington looked serious.
Boston beat Houston. Western New York beat Boston. Thank you. Good looking out.
Boston beat Houston. Okay, here we go.
Good looking out. Good looking out.
Is it better?
Yes.
You see like more of you. So we're not little foreheads down on the horizon or something. No.
Yeah, so Chicago looked great, which is kind of sad because their entire like midfield, forwards, and goalkeeper defenders were gutted.
I was really counting on Houston and Chicago falling apart bad over the next six to 8 weeks. I was really hoping for that, but I don't think it's really going to happen. And we don't have to play Chicago again until we get all our big guns back.
Right.
But I was kind of hoping they would lose some ground because I don't think they're going to lose a whole lot when they get press.
Yeah, she's so good.
Yeah, she's pretty good.
And it looks like KC is, even though they eked it out, they're at least, that's all they need to do. That's all you need to do to get 3 points is that's what we did last year was eke it out, especially those 3 games against Houston. 1 goal more than the other team, and they're already in second place.
What's their Twitter thing? 1 pass at a time or something?
Is that?
Yeah, it's like they're a total perfectionist kind of,
And it was Nicole. I have your last week's fantasy league up.
Oh yeah, that's why I'm here.
And it was Casey's Barnhart though that like really got you captaining her, right? Is what you got you the.
Well, is that this week or last week?
I think it's this week.
Is Barnhart? I think that's this time. I think the reason that I'm here.
Oh, you got notes.
Well, I brought notes because I knew you were going to talk about fantasy league from before, and I can never remember who I picked from week to week. I come up with who I think sounds good, and it's like I played Barnhart not this last week, but the week before. But the trick was I played Dunn, which I don't think a lot of people were doing before then, and then I had the weird one was I picked Mewis and LaRue, both from New York, not Christy Mewis. There were lots of people picking Christy Mewis. I took Sam Mewis because again, I'm 6 foot tall. I have a thing for tall people. And remember, baby Mewis is big, and she was
huge. I remember seeing her when she played here. I was like, wow, because I watched her in LA, and she's.
You and I were talking about that when I stole your Pac-12 network login last year. Remember, we were watching UCLA, and it's like, yeah, baby Mewis is big.
Yes.
And she looked really good the week before, and so I was thinking, okay, look, LaRue is about to disappear for the World Cup, and she hasn't done spit in her first couple of games, and so I figured, okay, even if LaRue doesn't score, she's going to be like antic, mad, desperate to do something before she has to withdraw and go to national camp, at which point she becomes a reservist again, And so I threw LaRue on there, and then I'm thinking, okay, well, LaRue's not going to do real good. If LaRue goes mad in a game, because you know how, like, Sid will do that. She'll I don't know whether it's streaky or not, because what I always remember about LaRue is when she was a national sub, and she never seemed to have a good or a bad streak. She was just awesome every time she came on in little 10-minute spurts, But I was thinking if LaRue goes crazy for a game, that means that a lot of people are going to pile up and worry about her, and that's going to take pressure off the rest of the midfield. And I thought, all right, who's going to be the big badass in New York's midfield? Well, it's not going to be Becky Edwards because she's too far back. It's baby Mewis that's going to do it. So I put Mewis and LaRue on mine during the week that New York was. Who were they playing? They were playing Kansas City, weren't they? This was, I think, the second, third. I think this was their game against Kansas City, which everybody assumed they were going to get killed, because it's New York, they weren't supposed to do really well. But they had done pretty well against us. And I remember Mewis looking a lot scarier than she ever did on the Pac-12 stuff. So I put 2 New Yorkers on here in a game that nobody gave New York a prayer in this game, I don't think. And so, because this is the thing about fantasy. Am I still talking too much about this?
No.
The thing about fantasy league is that there tend to be patterns that everybody will kind of pick the same people.
Right.
Or there'll be families of people who've all picked the same people. So there'll be 50 people who have virtually the same team, plus or minus a name. Another 100 people who have virtually the same team, although differing captains, you know, stuff like that. But the thing is I think what got me a big score that week was doing something unusual and unexpected that for whatever reason paid off. So this was a really lousy week for fantasy. Like the top score was less than 100 points out of 1,200 people or something. And it's like I got something like 70 something or 79.
It's because they were like, wasn't it that there were so many, oh, and it goes back, hi. Wasn't there so many, there were so many like goals scored that defenders got like negative points too? Was that the week that happened? I remember that happened in the last week or
there were no double games. There were only 4 games.
Oh, that's
and they were really kind of hard to predict.
Yes.
Kind of.
Yes.
But the common wisdom seemed to be that New York was going to get crushed. And so I think people were loading up really heavy on Kansas City people. And mine, I had kind of a cross because I had, you know how usually you don't pick people from teams that are opposing each other, you know? It's like you're going to take...
I kind of do, though.
If
I think it's going to be a close game, I will.
Okay.
If I think like someone will have a big game, I might do that.
Usually what I do is try and pick out who I think has the best potential to come up with a clean sheet.
Okay.
And bet heavy on their defense, and then try and bet heavy on offense of either other games or just that one.
Okay, so that's good wisdom because that's a good tactic that we haven't really discussed on the show, is talking about what team is going to have a clean sheet, because that's a big thing for defenders.
So let me ask you a question. How many people do you think actually base their fantasy picks strictly off of that guy from All White Kit?
Strictly off that? I mean, I don't think a huge number, but I think he does have a huge
I mean, he does
voice
pretty damn good
right
when he picks. I mean, he'll give you all the various options for the week, but then before the games start, he'll usually say, okay, well, this is what I'm doing. And he'll tell you exactly who he picked. And the thing is he usually beats me. And so it's like, I'm always kind of tempted to change something that I might, because I don't have a strategy really, you know. But I think I may be developing a strategy, and that a lot of people tend to follow what he does. But I think the thing that really is going to set you apart in this fantasy league world is to do something unexpected. So if there are 100 people who are picking basically the same team, plus or minus, maybe do the bulk of that, but then do something radically different that nobody else is doing.
Yeah, like another.
And so it's like all of a sudden that's what paid off for me, was like LaRue and Buis. It's like, well, they were playing for New York, who was supposed to get creamed. And it's like, I figured, okay, maybe they will get creamed, but I'm going to put them on there anyway, just because I figured they were going to have a good week. And it turned out that they really did. And that was a week that I think I captained Press, and Press got spit that week. Didn't do too great. But it was just generally a low-scoring week.
Right, yeah.
Because that was it. It was the week after Press had, like, wowed everybody by creaming us or something for, like, 2 goals. And they were all like, oh, my God, it's the next coming. You know, and so, like, everybody on Earth captained Press. And I think I fell for it and then just decided no more.
Is it time to start taking Little out of our lineups? So many people had Kim Little in their lineups like every time last year with good reason. She was my captain almost every week last season. But this week, just to put it into perspective, Jess Fishlock got a red card and got more points than Kim Little. Jess Fishlock got a red card and got more points than Kim Little. That is how little she's doing.
I don't know.
I mean, is it time to rethink that? Because she's always in my lineup.
I still put her in there. I haven't really given up on her. The other one that I can't get rid of this year for some reason is Hagen. And even if you look at last year, now I don't think she played the whole year last year. And she only did kind of medium good last year. But she was one of those few Americans who were playing in France that I would actually look at every once in a while. And I saw a couple of games in France that's like, damn, she's good.
Did she play for Bayern Munich? I thought she played for the ladies Bayern Munich. Or was it Lyon?
No, when she was, hang on, when Hagen was in France.
I could have sworn it was Bayern Munich.
If it was Munich. I don't know.
Now I'm second guessing myself. Either way.
No, you probably shouldn't do that because it's like early morning crap for me. So I may have had it completely wrong.
I can't even get a look at your roster even before the scores have come.
You're right. It was Bayern because she hung out with Timrak, and Timrak did that stint when she was over there. And so it's like she and Timrak were both playing in Munich. Okay, so you're right.
And so they had that
So it
kind of,
wasn't France.
they had that sort of,
Haran, maybe. I don't know.
yeah, they had that chemistry on the field, and they came
But
back.
I remember seeing her in like this other game, like non-American game, where she was the American in there, and she just looked good. And so for some reason, I've been kind of using her a lot in fantasy, hoping that she'll turn up at some point, which hasn't really happened yet.
Well, hopefully with the national team was out, this will be her chance, because that's what the good thing about the World Cup is, right? The good thing is, you know, with the national teams gone, players like Hagen and, you know, Ellie Long can shine, can get the stage for once. So, I mean, we'll see. Hopefully she can be one of them. I have a lot of faith in her. I know she has such a great story, you know, like recovering from cancer and this whole going overseas, and, you know, this Midwest girl. It'd be great to see her really succeed and, you know, come into her own on the national team.
I don't even remember that.
I think they just posted on Instagram, like, that it's her 10 or 15th celebration without being cancer free. I don't know what kind of cancer it was. But yeah, it's sort of it's a good story. You know, it's when you're watching World Cups and things like that, you're looking for that good character story of the players, you know.
Gotta have a narrative.
Yeah, so here we go.
Which
10 years ago today, I kicked
why
cancer's butt.
I think that's why everybody hates Tony DeCicco. Holy cow, that looks.
Yeah, so 10. So she's only in her early 20s, so that must have been, she was a teenager maybe?
Wow.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Wow.
Tony DeCicco, he's
No, I was saying, I think that's why everybody comes down on Tony DeCicco, because they don't like him, because he's a blunt narrative talker. Like, you know, people were bitching about him. I was looking through Twitter. They were bitching about DeCicco. I think the reason that they don't like him is he's the brutal narrative guy. So he starts off watching the game, and I think Abby, you know, had a couple of misses. Went for a header, missed it.
I love Tony DeCicco as well.
Is that being facetious or true?
I don't know, but he got us the World Cup, and that's
He did
more
give
than
us
any
a World Cup.
other coach
I
has
can
done.
forgive him a lot of
So.
that. And to be honest, the blunt narrative thing that is what I think annoys a lot of people about his commentary. Could conceivably be the thing that makes him a really good coach.
Is that he's noticing.
But the thing is
great.
I think what people were not liking about him was Abby came out for the game and didn't look good. She would go for a header and miss it. She would get a header but send it wide. And he was just going on about she's not playing, she's out of form, can't recapture it, and you can just feel the narrative building, that he's calling it ahead of time, that Wambach can't do blah blah blah. And then boom boom, she like puts in a couple of goals, right before the half, I guess.
Yeah,
it was like
part,
45, 47, something like that, you know. So it's like bam bam. And you're like, everybody deep in their heart, you got to admit it, you knew this was going to happen. This was Abby. This is what Abby does. I mean, she does it all the time.
Yeah.
You know, that she's like almost klutz, can't play. God, why do I watch this? Goal. And I mean,
she got 4. Okay.
and it's
never
like
mind.
that happens. I mean, over the years, that happens over and over and over again. So you think we should know this by now.
Right.
But it's like DeCicco bought into the narrative, and it's the blunt narrative thing. Gotta have a narrative, So just gonna talk about the narrative, you know? And the narrative is Abby should have played, she didn't play, she's out of practice, she's cold, and it's bad. And she was great with Alex, but Alex is hurt, so they're not gonna work, so we need to be doing something else, and not this long ball to Abby. And then Abby scores twice, and then, you know, Tony's eating crow in the second half.
Yeah.
Because he misdiagnosed the appropriate narrative for that game, you know.
So we have one pro Tony and one anti Tony watching, and I think this is a really interesting conversation. So Brett says that he's great, and I tend to agree with that because, I mean, it's hard to say no to his wisdom.
I just don't like the way he speaks. Sometimes there's something about he has a regional accent that grates on me. And I can't pinpoint where it's from, but there's just something about it that doesn't agree with my ears. But it's like, other than that, I think he's fine.
Watching him though, like critique the actual play on the field when he's commentating is fascinating, because he'll say things like that pass, that pass was too long. He should have, she should have held it for another touch and thought about it more, or just things like that. And he'll very finely critique it.
Yeah.
And I think that that's kind of what's missing from their coaching style right now, because it's like, we've got these superstars, now go be superstars out there. But maybe, we can fine-tune it a little bit better.
Here's the thing, what you're saying, what we're missing on coaching right now. Now, I don't want
It's coaching, I think.
Well, it's coaching. I don't want to get into the whole Ellis thing, but my own theory on Ellis is that college coaching, how long was she at UCLA? You know?
I don't know.
I think it was a while, not like, decades, but I think she was there for a while. But it's like there's something about her, something when she speaks that reminds me of academia. Okay, and I love academia myself, but I'm not sure that it's necessarily best suited to producing like exceptionally, insanely good, like champion epic teams. There's something that's built into her that I think she's all about, like individual empowerment of all players. All people will have their strengths. You just have to be able to find them, and they will all come out for everybody and all be happy. It's a very kindergarten-y kind of thing. Even if you go all the way up into like grad school, that kind of mentality sort of exists. And so I'm not sure. And some of these people can be very unpleasant, but they're still basically fundamentally committed to helping satisfy every single person's needs so that all people are happy. And the thing is I think DeChico and even Pia especially, I think and you never really saw this that much, but I always got the impression that she could be really cutting and mean. Not to slight or hurt any individual player, but I think it's a brutal worldview that's kind of, this is the way things are going to work, and sometimes you will not get what you want. Deal with it. You know what I mean? Like, you remember when like Lloyd was sort of drifting out for a while?
Yeah.
And it's like they weren't
prior
really
to the Olympics, I think.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah. But it just seemed like she was fading out, and you're all kind of thinking, oh wow, that might be it for Carly Lloyd. And she's been around for a while, not super long, but it's like, she's like pushing 30 and not really starting anymore. That might be about it on her arc. And then she came like roaring back, kind of just because she's Carly Lloyd and she's got that weird, big game, eat like a tiger thing. But the thing is I think what was going on there, this is just my theory, is that Pia would look at the team and say, like, I don't want my midfield being a cannon all the time, taking wild shots. I want to set up this team to feed our goddamn forwards. They're going to score. That's the way it will work. And I don't care whether you as a person or an individual like it or not. That's what I want you to do. And if you don't do that, you're not going to play.
Right.
Whereas I think Ellis doesn't really do that much. I think she's all like, oh, we need everybody to kind of find their strength and do whatever. And so it's like all of a sudden you've got our midfielders like outscoring our front line all over the place. Sometimes. Yeah, the defenders coming up, but it's just like, sure, go for it, whatever you need. And it's not necessarily like, I don't know exactly what it is, but it's the cliche thing that they need a benevolent dictator to be our coach, because the U.S. is weird. We have strong personalities or something. But it's like, I wonder sometimes whether Ellis has got enough dictatorial muscle in her. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
she doesn't come off that way at all.
Which I'm not really trying to knock it, because like say Julie Johnston all of a sudden seems like an offensive weapon, and it's like, I'm good with that.
The way Ellis is setting her up for corners and set pieces is get Julie Johnston the ball. That's what your job is on corners, because if you notice all the little tricky plays, they have her in a particular spot and they are feeding the ball to her because they know she can do it. And that's clearly a coaching decision. So, clearly she knows that,
So I don't know. I mean, maybe Ellis is doing that or something, but there does seem something weird about that. Like, how do we get off on this topic? Talking about the Chico, that there's something blunt and gruff about him that seems like he has that same sort of Pia thing that I used to notice. But I can understand, yeah, he won a World Cup for us, because I think he comes in with a blunt narrative to say, we are warriors, we will fight, we will, I mean, it's like the initial guy that started all the, Americans are athletic and quick, the long ball thing. Maybe that all started with him. I don't know, something. To me, it always just seemed like he had Akers who he knew would like rip somebody's throat out if they needed to. Yeah. And so that's the way we're going to play.
Right.
When
you have Michelle Akers, it's pretty easy to get a World Cup. Right. She's one of the best players in the world, in my opinion. I could go off on a long tangent about Michelle Akers. We will not. Yeah. Let's talk about another big reason we wanted to have you on was because you're very creative with TIFOs, and I know you've been involved in both making, like personal, like this, not smaller, but like the big ones that you see hanging, and then also involved in the huge, massive stadium-sized ones. Just kind of going through.
How long does this go on?
Typically like an hour, so we'll get about 25 minutes. Yeah.
I've been talking that much. Ryan hasn't even shown up. Did we even
I think
talk
Ryan
about
might be here.
Did we even talk about last season, week Thorns? I don't know. Sorry, I didn't see much of an outline.
Of what do you mean Thorns?
Of what we're gonna cover or what?
Well, I think
fantasy, because I tend to like not follow outlines. So.
What we typically like to do is talk about the week in review of the games, and then the fantasy, and then like one other miscellaneous topic. And I thought ours could be TIFO discussion.
Okay, so the week in review of the other games I was pretty much focused on the Thorns game. The other ones were all taking place roughly at the same time, but I did sort of see the Chicago game.
Yeah, so that's what we were saying before about how Chicago, we thought that they would look bad without so many, but they ended up beating Boston 3-0. But I mean, you know, Boston didn't have a Lissonier, which is like,
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, and then let's talk about, so TIFO stuff.
Yeah, I mean, okay, for those of you who might not know.
Do you want to repeat what we were talking about in the kitchen?
Yeah, I mean, to some extent. Just for, if you don't know, making a huge TIFO involves creating something on Photoshop, creating like an image, getting a projector, projecting the image, and then painting it. And it involves a lot of people, a lot of paint, and a lot of canvas. So just going through what that process is like. I mean, we don't need to go through like necessarily the whole, but just for people who might not know.
So who really listens to this thing?
We have some Blue Crew. I know a Chicago fan does. So some other, supporters group who aren't necessarily Thorns people.
Oh, somebody else. Nicole.
Oh, is it Ryan?
All right.
Hello.
Ryan.
We're talking TIFOs. You can join us. We don't have a chair for you though.
That's all right. I'll sit on the floor.
We'll have a chair.
You can sit on my lap. Is that weird? I don't mind it.
I can stand.
No. I want Ryan to sit on my lap.
Hey, man. Hey. All right. So what? On the TIFO, okay. It's like the last thing on earth I ever thought I would do for any sporting event, because I don't know. I guess I did baseball games when I was a kid or something, and there were usually some people like hanging around, but there was that one junkie back in the when I was a kid, there was some guy that was always wearing a rainbow colored wig trying to sit behind home plate, just being really ostentatious. I never really saw any point to any of that. I never really thought I would do very much of it, but I was telling you before this thing started, before you put me on the spot, that last year, I mean, I've like watched soccer games, been to a couple of Timbers games, but like I knew about the TIFO display stuff they did. I just never really thought I'd do very much of it. So when the Thorns rolled along, I noticed that I'm a little bit more like dug into this team than is maybe healthy. And last year when we got slaughtered, and I think I decided it was after the New York game is what happened. The next day happened to be one of those days when they put out the open call that they needed bodies to come in and do the TIFO. And so like I responded to the thing. But I responded to the thing just because that I felt like I wanted to do something, anything. And it's like normally when I think about the giant TIFO thing, it's like there's too much logistics involved. I don't really want to get into it.
Right.
But this sounded like somebody had already thought all of that out, and all they really wanted was a body to come in and move a paintbrush around. It's like, okay, I can do that. It's brain dead, and it will give me a chance to hang out in the same room with a bunch of other people who also got slaughtered last night. And so we can all sit in there and feel bad together and paint anything at all, just so I don't have to keep replaying the thing in my head. Which is pretty cool because a lot of people were talking about it, but at the same time they were playing like, you know, weird classic crap on the radio, so that, you know, you didn't have to think about that much. You could just pretend you were in college and drunk again.
And this is the Pride TIFO.
And I think that was the Pride one because that was my first experience to doing it. And it took me a really long time to do it because when I started, they had already done a whole bunch of it, but I was doing basically the left side of Nadine's head and some of the hair. And then I think I sort of did the shadow down her arm. And then I moved on to some lettering.
Scale, if you've never
some lettering after that. And I remember it took me forever because I kept having to stop and ask questions. Like, you know, I went in there and I'm like, okay, you know, I'm just painting these careful little lines. Other people are in there with the paint just throwing it around. And it's like, how do you guys do this so fast? And they're like, quarter rule. I was like, quarter rule? What's quarter rule? And it's quarter rule. It's like if you screw up and it's smaller than a quarter, nobody's gonna see it.
It's true. If you really think about it, these things look small on the screen because you're watching it on YouTube screen, but when you're actually there underneath it, they're the size of an entire section of the stadium. They're huge.
If you happen to be in front of it and you look up at the thing when it goes up, it's like a 2-story building. You know? You're just like, wow. Yeah. And it's like, since then, you know, they have these other weird rules, and I feel like I'm kind of an outsider to this because, like I said, I've never done anything like this before, and I get the feeling that a lot of the people who do this, well, one, I get the feeling that they all know each other pretty well. Which I really don't know them all that well. I mean, just kind of a first name basis thing. I'm getting to know a few of them, sort of, but it's still sort of a first name thing. But I get the feeling that they've done dozens of these things before, going back, you know, through the timbers and job. And I'm not. I'm still kind of new at it. Why am I talking about that? I lost my train of thought there. What was I talking about?
TIFO painting. Go.
TIFO. There's another rule that they kind of mentioned on the thing. They said that one of the things that they want to do sometime is whenever you start getting weirded out about like, oh, I've messed it and blown it. This is going to be horrible. It'll be awful, and I don't want to do it. They'll say, don't fix it. Just keep going, doing whatever you're doing. And then tomorrow when we come back, everybody's going to look at this thing, and your eye is going to be able to spot your mistake instantly because you will never forget your own mistake. And you may, you know, go up into the balcony of the warehouse and look down at the thing and go, oh, there's my mistake. You may get on the balcony and look down and say, oh, I can't even see it.
Right.
But they say the challenge is to don't tell anybody about your mistake. Leave it there. And then the next day, go up into the balcony, you look down at the thing and spot someone else's mistake. Well, so you can't do it. You can't see it. And you'll find out that other people who will go up there that will look down at this thing will not see your mistake. You know what I mean? Unless it's like, you know, a big glob of black paint in the middle of a white space. That you'll see, but then all you do, you just say it's there, tell everybody about it, let it dry, and then paint over it when you go on the thing. So it's that kind of thing. When I first went, I was just like really slow, you know, going through Nadine's hair or something. But that was really fun. And then it dawned on me when I was at the game that I was I wasn't on the crew for that one, you know, I just sort of did the painting and went home. And I think it was just the one day. It was just a few hours. And I went home, and then when the game came around, they had that table wrap stuff, you know, the plastic junk that looks like they're yard bags that everybody's gonna hold up. So when the TIFO went up, I was holding up that thing, but it's like I was holding that thing up, but I was in front of it. And so I was like craning my head around looking up at this thing, and I was thinking, this is like super cool.
And then you feel so proud of it when it goes up, even though, you know, there's 20 people working on it and you all paint like a letter. When it goes up, you're like, I helped doing that. And it's like this coolest feeling of pride.
It really is. And I was really shocked that I had such an attachment to it somehow, because it was just a couple of hours. And I mean, basically it was helping me decompress after a really bad game, you know. But it's like after the thing went up, I thought, this is groovy. I mean, it's just neat. Even if it wasn't this huge, this is groovy. And then I just started thinking about, like, I mean, ever since then, whenever the Riveter people, the big ones, it's not really as organized as I thought it was, I don't think.
Right. Especially this most recent one where all the times and places kept getting moved and we couldn't go. Ryan and I couldn't go because
the last minute change.
Because there were so many last minute changes. Yeah.
That's my Python thing in my head. You know, the Riveters, we are an anarcho-syndicalist commune. Take it in turns to act as a sort of executive officer for the week. I mean, that's pretty much what it feels like.
Do you know how these like ideas, like the most recent one that we made on a big level for the Thorns was this the airport one. Do you know how these sort of themes and the ideas behind it come to be? Like, are people suggesting it or?
Last year, no, I didn't. This year, yes, because I answered another one of those email things. I either answered a thing or they put up some website where you could, just, submit a name or something like that. So I think I did that, and then they started emailing me back. But yeah, apparently there's like a group of people who specialize more or less. They have certain skill that they oversee. Like there are the rigging people who will be in charge of like throwing up whatever ropes need to go through the rafters, which is super cool. If you ever get to go see it, you guys were there with that giant slingshot.
It involves a slingshot and a tennis ball, and it's so cool. I had no idea that's how they did it.
It makes me think that I want to like next year when this thing comes around, I think I'm going to volunteer again next year, and I'm going to like screw this planning crap. I thought it would be easy and low key to just kind of do the planning thing, because like my personality is one I think that I sort of, if you put me in a room full of strange people, I tend to gravitate towards the periphery of whatever it is. And so I figured, okay, if I go into a strange room of people and they're all just totally involved in whatever they're doing, I can just sort of fade into the background and lob a comment in here or there, disappear, and everything will still happen because they'll be doing whatever they're doing, and it won't fail because I'm not that active a participant. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But it's like, man, next year I want to like forget this planning thing. I want to play with this slingshot. Yeah. Who do I talk to learn how to do that?
I want to do whatever it takes to do the slingshot.
That just looked totally fun. And then I want to do both the design and the slingshot thing, and push for every design that will require the maximum number of lines to be shot in slingshot. It's like so much fun.
It did take forever though.
It did take a very long time.
And then you have you've done a smaller.
Oh, okay. Well, so anyways, before you get to the smaller one, yeah, I know kind of how it came about. So there was before the home opener, like it wasn't that long. 2 weeks. 2 weeks before the home opener, I think, was when they had the first. Yeah, for this season, they had the first meeting, and it was at Fan Laden, which is the little clubhouse that they keep. Same thing as the Timbers, but they opened it up and they had a table and everything where there were, how many of us? 1, 2, 3, 4. I think there were 7 of us that were in the room, and basically it was just people like loosely throwing out a schedule. This is what the schedule this year looks like. There's the opener, the closer. That's going to happen. Somewhere in the middle of the season, there's a gay pride day, and I think they want to kind of do one for that. There were a bunch of people who were saying that they wanted to do one for the Seattle game, and there was a conflicting opinion that Seattle isn't worth their own TIFO display just yet, which I don't know. I figure the Seattle game has potential just because it's going to be a crowded game. You know it's going to be a crowded game, and it seems to me that in visual terms, the big display usually looks better in a mob.
Yeah.
It doesn't always look that great if it's a sparse game,
And I think any chance to shame the Seattle people, if we can put a TIFO up and show them how it's actually done, that's worth it to me.
Yeah.
It doesn't take much to shame them because they really don't do anything.
Yeah.
We could just put together a few 2 sticks. That's automatically more than what Seattle's ever done for their players.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, it's something, but then it gets to the smaller display thing too, which I think You want to talk about, because we have a show and tell thing.
Yeah,
So-
totally. Let's
So,
check it out.
so in this meeting, they would just look at the schedule of the season, and then they would just sort of, I think, they told everybody to kind of think about an idea or whatever they were going to do, and they tried to come up with like 2 or 3 thematic ideas of what did we want to do for certain particular games. And then one other caveat was, and I'm not sure if this is a Timbers thing or whether it's specifically like a Thorns thing, but in each of the first 2 seasons, one of the displays has been like a pull apart thing. Like the very first display when it was just the red of the jersey with the white stripe, and so everybody's holding up these glad bag things.
Yeah, I
Shelf
remember
wrap.
that being
Shelf
one.
table wrap is what they call that. Which I don't know.
I
where
didn't know what
comes
that was. I just thought it was like a red and white stripe. I didn't
So
get it.
table wrap, I don't know, maybe it's something that they put over nice wooden pieces when they're in storage so they don't, because it's like glad baggy stuff.
Yeah, it was like
it's
plastic.
polyethylene colored things that you can cut into squares really easy. And it was something that they could do fast and they didn't have to think about. And then they had a whole bunch of 2 sticks that just said, welcome Allie, welcome Alex, welcome Liana, all of those things got painted. And then after the display, they all got taken apart and given to each of the players.
Mhm.
And I've never been clear if this is something that they do for the Timbers as well, or whether it's just us. But I think that's now an established tradition that each year they want to have one of the several displays that they do.
Yeah, like last year they had the
And then
portrait.
last year was Art History 101, where they had all the individual portraits of each player based off of a different artist from, that most people would recognize. Which, now that I have a minute to say it, Sinclair's Sink Descending the Staircase, that didn't get nearly enough attention. That was a work of genius. I love that
I
one.
can't recall what that was. I know we had like
It was Marcel Duchamp. He's he's the old chess player guy. It's what do they call it? Futurism, I think was what it was called. It was around the time of Picasso. It was just slightly before and overlapping with Picasso, I think. But it's that scene, where it's trying to capture the motion of a guy walking down a stair. So nude descending a staircase is the original painting. But it's all sort of a brownish earth tone sort of color, and you can vaguely make out the shape of this form going down the stairs. But they did Sinclair, so it was Sink Descending the Staircase, and they did it in a red theme. You can look it up on the Riveter's site because they have little snapshots of each of them.
all of those were so creative.
I know that a lot of them were great, but they were giving so much attention to the other ones that they did. Like, I think Mana got the Mona Lisa.
Yeah,
so she
sure
was the
did.
Mona Lisa. And
Yeah.
that one got a lot of attention because it's a brilliant idea. Sink Descending the Staircase was written. I love that one.
I have to look those up again because those are all really amazing. Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, and that's actually how this meeting started, I think, was somebody basically saying, we should all just admit ahead of time that our history killed TIFO for the next 5 years. We'll never pass it.
I agree. It's
So-
impossible. The airport one was fantastic and cool and definitely timely because everyone was talking about the PDX carpet, but it's so hard to pass a
But you see, that's
individual portrait of each player.
part of what's so fun about that is that everybody, I think, knows the airport one. They think about it as Instagram or intense fan was what it said. I think copyright thing or something. I don't know, but intense fan. I thought that was very funny. But that wasn't the original part of the idea. It's like a room full of people just talking about, what we want to do. And it was like, it's a World Cup year, we're going to lose a bunch of people, whatever. And so it was like a couple of different ideas that sort of went into the single thing. And the idea of doing the Instagram part of it was like the last thing that anybody came up with. That's not what they led with, which I just thought was like part of what's fun is it's like this weird, and like I said, it's kind of anarchist because it's not like anybody's really in command of the room, but it's fun. It's not really like being at work or at a job, it's just sort of like a bunch of people talking about stuff,
Oh, someone tweeted it out. Oh,
Oh, yes.
thank you,
That
Nicole.
one.
Good looking out, Nicole.
I don't know why nobody noticed that one that much more, but
That's awesome.
I love that one.
That's awesome.
But anyway, so they came up with the idea that they were going to do about 3 of these things, and somewhere they have to come up with the money to do it or what, but in terms of like where the idea for the Instagram thing came from, I don't even remember who it came from, but it wasn't first. It's
Mhm.
like it sort of evolved over the talk. And then beyond that, they just sort of left it with a bunch of other ideas. And then while we were working, we haven't really had an exit interview thing on the thing yet. One of us recommended that we should get back together and sort of talk about what went well, what didn't go well in terms of doing it. Because this, as I understand it, this was a slightly more traumatic TIFO thing than some of the things have been in the past, in that we kind of got evicted from our warehouse space in the middle of the weekend.
Mhm.
Some florist came in who needed passage through the space, and so we ended up having to move from one warehouse to another. It was not.
Yeah, it was. I'm surprised that we got it all together,
It didn't-
considering how complex all of those were.
It didn't go.
Yeah.
It didn't go smoothly. And then you guys were there on the last day.
We were there Friday night to help with
Post
to do the
Hoisting.
practices
the practice.
for the
run.
Oh,
practice
for the hoisting.
Yeah.
Okay, but not the paint. Oh, that's right, because you had to work through the whole thing. That was
Yeah.
right.
Cause
I
they,
tried to
that's
get
right.
off, and they
But
needed to-
like the thing is on the last day, what we came up with was sort of a clumsy view of how it works. You know, like, I mean, if you guys are from other, the basically how it works is they'll come up with a computer file of whatever the graphic is that you're going to do.
Mhm.
You figure out how to load that into a projector.
Right.
Like computer with a USB thing that feeds into some projector. You get in a dark space with the cloth hung on the wall. You project it on there, and then a bunch of people run over with charcoal and just trace out, the border between all the colors and stuff, And then when you get it all charcoaled up, you can remove the projector, throw a bunch of tarps on the floor, lay the whole thing out on the floor, and then start. Usually the strategy is to start with light colors first. So you try and do light colors from the center out. And then when it dries enough, you kind of go back with a darker color. And then black is usually last, because anything that is really messed up with an overlap or something, you can usually, if there's a black border between it, you can just go right over it. Like where ocean meets land, if it doesn't look like the coastline, it won't matter, because you're going to come along with a black line and just cover it all up anyway. So it's like you work in colors from light to dark, because mistakes can progressively be erased that way, just overdone. There's this weird little strategy like that, but it's like, it's all a giant paint by numbers thing. And I thought that was really going to be like all that it really was. But apparently there were a couple other people who were floating around who hadn't been in the other meeting, who were apparently well known. I'm like, one of them, Igor, you guys probably know, he's the tattoo guy from Dragon Lily Tattoo. And then Chrissy, I don't know her last name. Chrissy, I don't know her last
I
name.
know a lot of people by face, but I don't necessarily know them, or by Twitter. I don't necessarily know
I
them.
know him by Twitter. I know him as you when I run into him. And they're all very pleasant, but it's just, I don't know. There are a bunch of them. And then they just come and go and stuff. Ben is like the most genial man in Portland. He's good. He was the guy that got us from one warehouse to the other, which would not have happened without him. It's great. But anyway, Igor and Chrissy came in on the last day, and they may have been there, but they just didn't overlap with me or something. So I don't think I had really seen them before this last final day when we went in there. And then what I noticed when we went in is that they weren't there to go through the mechanical process of doing the paint by numbers. They were the ones with the artistic skill who kind of came in and didn't follow the lines. They sort of looked at what had been painted there, and then they were freehanding shadows under the feet. It was putting the yellow pattern in the carpet. There's this faint yellow thing that I don't even think, I have looked at this PDX carpet 100, just like anybody else who lives here. I've lain down on that stuff before. It's like, I feel like I've been intimate with the PDX carpet over the last 20 years. And I never noticed that it had this weird little yellow pattern in it. It didn't show up on the projection, but she knew it was there and came in and filled it all in. Igor came in and freehanded this rose, which, he's a tattoo artist, so he's probably done hundreds of roses on humans before, on, I don't know, whatever curved surface that people get roses tattooed on. But this was like a big 4-foot rose. It was flat and thing. And he just sort of sat over there for, I don't know, it didn't take him that long, like an hour and a half or something. But he was just sitting over there by himself in the corner with his brush, just like doodling out this rose in a big black space, you know, with no design or anything. So it's like that, if you've got it, you know, is kind of, I think, a key element, because that to me made a hell of a lot of difference in how the thing looked when it went up. Is it didn't look like somebody's giant page from a coloring book. All of a sudden it looked like a painting, you know, which I don't know exactly how you recreate that, but if you're friends in town with any soccer loving tattoo artists, grab hold of them.
Let's talk about yours now, because
so anyway,
you're
those
able to create
those are the big things, and what dawned on me was like, you don't necessarily have to do the giant tifo to do cool. You can use the same sort of
Ryan and I
strategy.
have talked about trying to make like a flag or something that we can paint here.
What was the sign you made in the first game this year, Ryan? It was
Oh,
a
Portland.
referee. You're the reason we.
Oh, that was Mike.
That was Mike who did that one.
Mike was one who did the pro referees weekly because of you.
Okay.
It was a song, pro referees.
Oh,
referees.
well, it's Oh
Yeah.
Christmas Tree. It's
Yeah.
the song. Oh referee, oh referee.
No,
Because
it's
we
done to
would drink-
Tetris. It's
Oh, it
done
was
to,
Tetris.
it's done to Tetris.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was basically just making fun of the refs because they're terrible.
Yeah, which, you know, they always are. Unless you win, you know, which they can still be terrible even when you win.
Yes.
Something. But the thing that dawned on me is like after I did the big tifo, I was thinking, okay, well, this is a big deal. And there's no way that I'm ever going to do this on my own. And I started thinking about all these guys that had hung stuff out at Timbers games, which some of them I thought were pretty funny. But I never really anticipated like doing it myself. You know, it's like, okay, you can make a sign by stomping a piece of cardboard flat, writing on it with a Sharpie or something. It's pretty cool. It's kind of like to go a step beyond that and figure out how to do it. So to use the projection and trace idea to come up with something. I was thinking that would be really cool to do on a small scale. There's no way I could really do it. But then it dawned on me, it's like if you just think of the design somehow in your head and you get it. Holly is another one of these people who has one of these projector things set up in her garage. So you can go over there and like get her to project this thing while it's hanging on the wall, borrow the garage, trace it out, and then you can paint it whenever you got time or something. I think so. When I've done this, I've just gone ahead and painted it over in the garage because she gets into this stuff too. So she's been sort of the partner in crime and all this. But I figured I wanted to do one that was like really, really simple or wouldn't involve a whole lot of
If we
painting.
can get it in frame.
But the thing that made the difference about this with me was this was a homemade project.
Is this the right way?
I think it might be upside down. But it was a homemade thing that
We're
was
not gonna be able to
done
get it all,
just like a giant tifo, but it
but
was
on a
done
smaller scale.
but on a small scale, not on a big sale canvas thing that cost thousands of dollars, but it happened on, you
You
know,
can't see it, it says Morrigan.
a
the shade of
twin
Oregon.
bed sheet. Here, Carla, get out from behind.
Okay.
Yeah. Step under the banner. But this is the one that we hung up last year, and it's not on the big, heavy sailcloth stuff.
Mhm.
This is I think it was $2.75
Wow.
for each in a pack of two, you know, so it was like $6 from Fred Meyer's to get 2 twin bed sheets. And then one of
Then
them,
you just put the little clasps in.
yeah, she had the grommet thing. It's like you know, it's like a machine for capping beer bottles, sort of, but they have these little, like, grommet front and back things that you can just stamp through it. But I figured all I wanted something was really simple, not a whole lot of colors, and there are basically 3 colors in the thing: white, red, and black. Red and black, easy to come by. This is, you know, regular old latex paint. And then the white, you just let the sheet show through on the lettering and try not to get anything in the white area, so you don't have to paint the letters. That's just the sheet itself. And so it's really light, folds up really, really small.
Yeah, I did. I was like, where's your tifo? I thought you were gonna bring it, and then yeah, here it is.
But see, that's the thing, is even after you paint it, it still folds up just like any other sheet once it dries. And so it's this tiny little thing that's smaller than a loaf of bread. You can stuff it in the backpack, take it with you, and hanging out, and it is much, much larger than anything, you know, you can hold up in your hands.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And to me, I always just kind of like that, because I think that sort of takes the crowd environment to
Right.
another kind of level.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like high school crowd at a soccer game. It's big high school
Professional.
crowd at a soccer game, and then it's like, oh my God, they got big enough that now they're creating art. Oh my God, what's going to happen next? You know,
Well, that was really cool. I was a big fan of that. When he
super
showed
tiny
me.
thing.
Yeah.
And so that one was like really fast and simple. Oh, plus, if you didn't know us, Alex signed it.
Yeah. Very cool.
I wrapped it around a book and took it to the airport after last year. I didn't really, I don't know, for some reason when they wandered around after the game, I was kind of drunk. I wrote the date of the game and what the score was on there. I was unsure whether I was going to hang the thing out again, but it's pretty much been hanging on my wall since then. But after that game, I was pretty drunk because, if you guys remember last year, I was kind of resigned to the fact that we were going to get beaten again, and this is going to be a really unfun year. It just wasn't going to work. The TIFO was going to be the only fun part, or the band